Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. Introducing your host from New York, here is Sam Roberts.
Man, oh man, I can't believe in all my time of interviewing wrestlers, I've talked to like everybody, and somehow you're like one of the few that's ever somehow gotten away from me.
I've never got invited.
Rey Mysterio's here.
Never
Ray,
was invited.
What's the haps?
Man, I wish I would have got invited before.
You know what it is?
What?
When you're in WWE, it's a little tough to get the direct invite. You know what I mean? You got to go around. You got to know the passages. Well, I'm glad you're finally here, man.
Thank you.
I was thinking about you because this part of your career has got to be especially sweet. Just it feels like what you're doing with Lucha now is almost getting to enjoy all the work that you've put in. You know what I mean? Because you get to the fans appreciate you like an insane amount. You don't have to work every night of the year. You get to see young guys who I'm sure the young guys are my age, so the young guys all came up watching you. I mean, this has got to be like the kind of good part.
It is in many ways. Most definitely the talent inside Lucha Underground, like the Pumas, like the Phoenix. I mean, Phoenix and Phoenix told me a story one time. I went to go do an autograph signing in Mexico City, and he was just probably 9, 10 years old. That place got so crowded that they had to pull me out of the mall that I was supposed to be signing autographs in.
Wow.
And they took me off site for a second, and then they tried to reschedule it within an hour, hour and a half outside the mall because it got too crazy inside. That when I made it outside, a lot of fans were so pissed off that they wanted to get to me right away. So they had to pull me off site again, and then it never happened. So Phoenix goes, bro, I was crying, man, because I didn't get a chance to see you.
Yeah, he was one of the guys trying to rush the...
You know, that makes you realize, wow, how many cats have I influenced here in the locker room?
What year was that happened?
That was probably in 2003.
Yeah. So what year did like rock star status like that hit? Because I mean, I know you were huge in Mexico before any of us stateside really knew you, right? You were big,
right? I think as much as I could have gotten,
right?
Obviously, if I would have stayed there much longer, the name would have grown much more. But the opportunity came to come to ECW,
right.
And from ECW, it opened up with WCW. But I think rock star status came in WWE.
Yeah,
like
that's when it opens up worldwide.
Globally, yeah.
I was talking. Have you met Finn Balor, Ferg Devitt?
No,
yeah, Prince Devitt.
No.
But he's one of the guys, right? He's like, he's big in Japan, and he thinks that everybody knows who Devitt is. Like this, he said he got to WWE, and it's like
it blew up.
This whole other world.
That's
like,
crazy.
It's this whole other thing.
I think that's what happens.
Yeah. Were you ready for that? Because you had spent years before you got to WWE. You were established in WCW. Like you had been there for a long time. You were an American name, so it's not like you were coming from this foreign place and being exposed to America for the first time.
In all honesty, I was so doubting myself because so many guys had told me, man, Vince ain't about the smaller weight classes.
Right.
He likes bigger guys in his company. So I was like, when they bought out WCW, they said, sit back with your WCW contract and get paid. You're not going to have to work. Just get paid, and when your contract runs out, which was the following year of 2001, April, then we can sit down and negotiate.
So they told you that. They said chill.
Yeah, they said chill. Make the money. You don't have to work. Just relax. We'll come at you when your contract is up. I was like, is that a way of blowing me off?
Right, that's what I'd be thinking too.
Yeah,
like,
I said, it's all right. Let me make my money.
That's like your girlfriend being like, no, you could go date whoever you want, and I'll be right back in a couple years. Like, don't worry.
So, anyways, my wife and I sat down like, man, we better make sure we save this money that's coming up because it might run out pretty soon. No, you know what? They kept their word. I remember January of 2001, did a little bit of shows in Puerto Rico because I'd never been there. I was able to wrestle in Arena Mexico for the first time. So a lot of things happened that I wanted to accomplish on my own. And then, sure enough, the call came. JR, hit me up. And he said, hey, we're ready to sit down and negotiate. We sat down, negotiated. I was like, I just want an opportunity.
Right.
You know, that's all I wanted, you know, and that's what I got.
So they didn't, like, promise you the moon. Like, they're not sitting there being like, you're going to be this main event guy that you ended up being.
No.
Right.
No, JR was probably the most straight up he could have been. He said, you know what? This is what we have to offer, you know, but of course, with your work status, you can make much more than that, depending on how you want to develop yourself.
Right.
So,
right.
and he said, he told me, he goes, I know you have the potential, so you're looking at big numbers here.
And then did you spend that year off getting big? Because when you showed up in WWE, you were way bigger.
Oh, way bigger.
And that's what you did, thinking like, oh, this is like the land of the giants, so let me get big? Or was it just a thing that you wanted to do?
I knew size-wise I couldn't get any taller.
Right.
So the only thing I can do is just be consistent with my workout, be consistent with how I look physically, my image. I've always tried to take care of my image inside the ring with my outfits, attire.
Totally.
Nice and clean.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that had a lot to do with my presence inside the ring.
Right, right. And is that up to you? I mean, I always wondered, like, the little questions like that, like the gear changes. Because you were a guy who was coming out with new gear like every other week. And it was always like there was never sort of old gear on you.
Yeah.
Like if the minute it got ratty or whatever, it's gone. It's dead.
Believe it or not, I learned that from my uncle, man.
Really?
My uncle, he actually taught us that, not verbally, but he would do that. Every time he would wrestle, he would wear a different mask, match up different boots and different tights. So kind of you just pick that off from your mentor, you know?
Right.
And once I made it to WWE, it was like, my shit has to be nice and clean.
Right.
And I got to make sure I do something different every time. Pay-per-views, superheroes. Let's blend that in.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you start getting the action figure deals. Then you start getting the sell the masks on WWE shop.
Yeah.
And you're like, this does pay for itself.
And believe it or not, I didn't do it with honesty, with the intentions of making a profit out of it. That's just how my mind flows, you know.
Right.
With outfits, with my gear, and with my wrestling moves.
And it's funny too, because it got to a point where it's like, especially like WrestleManias, it was like, it's Avatar or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. But that was your investment that you were making.
Yeah, it was. And nobody actually at one point they told me, you got to stop doing this because we're gonna get sued. So,
yeah, that Joker one, that's too close, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always tried to keep it fun, you know, and mysterious for the fans, because it was always like, man, what are you gonna bust out now, Ray? And they would give me ideas, you know. As a matter of fact, Avatar, a good friend of Matt Hardy's, told me, bro, next WrestleMania, and he wrote it down on paper. He goes, here. I said, oh, man. I said, that's good. I said, I promise you I'm doing that one.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure enough, man, it
And
happened.
it worked, man.
Yeah.
What did you think when you first got to, like, ECW? Like, did you realize that there was a difference, or because I would imagine if that's your first taste of American wrestling, really, you're going like, oh, this isn't as big as I thought it was, or I'm allowed to do more than I thought I would be allowed to do? Like, did you realize that ECW was not typical of American wrestling when you got there?
I knew it wasn't typical because of the style.
Yeah.
It was, you weren't seeing this in Mexico.
Right.
You weren't seeing hardcore matches. You would see a chair every now and then, but tables and fire and barbed wire is like, whoa. But when it got interesting for me was my first day there is, okay, with respect, Polly, is it okay if we grab a table? Polly's like, man, you can do anything you want. Just go out there and have some fun. So we got a little creative, you know. Psychosis and I did the Frankensteiner off the balcony, and every time it's like, okay, we got more comfortable, you know, with the arena and the areas that we can wrestle in, and that was just part of Polly being Polly, and letting you go out there and have fun, enjoy yourself. But I never knew that there was a limit to what you can do until I got to WCW, and orders were different. You know, there was
when
somebody.
It was like, no, this is the table spots. This match, you guys are doing this. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, at what point did you start to really be conscious of your body? Because somebody who's wrestled like you do, I can't think of anybody that's really able to wrestle consistently and as long as you have. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, you have to switch up as you go without completely losing the identity of who you are.
Yeah.
Is that just picking your spots more delicately and precisely?
now after so much of years being on the grind, now I do pick my spots, and now my mind tells my body, don't do this right now. Hold back. So
Right.
So before it was the young Ray. Even after 2-3 surgeries, I was still trying to do that same move that busted my knee to my previous surgery. Doing it again. So obviously that maturity and that self-growingness and being trying to be ahead of the game and stay in the game.
Right.
That keeps you a little bit more sane in the ring. But I think that didn't happen until probably my last WWE run.
So even when you started in WWE, it was still like, we got to go balls to the wall right now because we have to prove that there's a reason that I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, it was like that. And I think even in WWE, more than WCW, the days being on the grind were much harder. And when I came in, the roster was like fully stacked. We still had a Rock. We still had a Triple H. We had Kurt Angle, Eddie, Chris, myself, Jericho. I mean, it
seemed too like there was like, you guys could see opportunity. Like, you're part of this SmackDown roster that all of you, like maybe in WCW, in the back of your mind, you're a cruiserweight, and there's just something that they're not letting cruiserweight, because it's not happening for anybody.
Right.
They're not. So it's I'm going to go out there and have a great match, but I know that no matter how hard I push, it's going to be Hogan and Piper, or whatever in the main event. So is it when you get to SmackDown, are you like, I have to push as hard as I can, because there actually is opportunity for somebody like me to go to the top of the card?
You know what? It wasn't even that for me. In my case,
yeah,
it was always, no matter how bad the political side of wrestling was, backstage or in the office, it was when it's showtime, and there's no holding back.
Right.
No matter how many injuries you have, that was just the way I was brought up and taught. So, man, if there was times where it was just tape your ankle as bad as sprained as it was, and go out there and put on a good show. So that's putting political and everything else aside.
Yeah.
When that bell rang, it was balls off the wall, man, like you said.
And that's the undeniable thing too, right? That what's in the ring is the part that there's no arguing. Like, there's politics, there's backstage heat, but like that, whatever it is, 5, 10, 15 minutes in the ring is the part that's what stands alone from everything.
It's that glory, man, that you get it every night, when you step into that ring.
Now, I know that one of the main reasons that you like lucha so much is because you actually get to spend time with your family.
Yeah.
How did you feel bringing your family into the show? Like, how did you feel making your son part of the show?
Well, he was a fan. I brought him in. I actually talked to him about it the first time I went as a fan. I wasn't even getting close to signing a deal with them. So I was like, man, you really got to see this show. It's everything you would want to watch. He loves more of the high flying stuff, So when I brought him up and sat down and watched, like, wow, this thing's really cool.
Yeah.
Asked me if I was going to be a part of it. I said, well,
you're talking about Lucha Underground.
Yeah, Lucha Underground. Yeah. Like, well, we're looking to see where it leads, man.
Yeah.
We're in negotiation, and then of course, a couple months later, it happened.
And what about when he was younger on SmackDown? When you had him with the Eddie angle?
That he was so young that when I told him if he wanted to be a part of a storyline, he was like, yeah. He was okay with it. And then Eddie talked to him, and Eddie had been around the house for so many years and knew my family very well that he was so comfortable being around Eddie. But I believe that Eddie brought this whole idea to the table and presented it. So I'm grateful for that, because that was one hell of a storyline, man.
I mean, and that's one of those things, and it probably only works with somebody that you trust as much as you trusted him, because that's one of those things that, like, look, we're going to bring every personal thing, we're going to break every taboo, we're just going to do it. And those are the things when you're watching as a fan, like, I can't believe they're actually doing this. Like the custody on a pole match or whatever, the custody ladder match. I'm like, but it's real. Like, his family's right there.
It's right there. Yeah, we have a lady from Special Services, right, that was holding on to my son.
Yeah.
We actually give my son, we give him shit for the stuff he said, because when he really found out that Eddie wasn't his real or was his real dad.
Yeah.
His little boy said, "Is it true? Is it really true?" So every time we see him, man, Chavo, when he comes up to Lucha Underground and he sees him, he gives him shit about that, and he laughs all about it, man. He gets red, but at the same time he remembers that, and it was a special time for him. In my case, not a lot of parents get to live moments like that with their kids.
Right.
I was able to bring my son to work with me and share my work environment
and do
with
something
him.
special. Like, that's a special part of your career.
Yes, and he got paid.
He did.
He got paid really good money too.
Not till you're 18 though. That's going
Yeah,
into college
that's
fund.
going
That's
aside.
going. Yeah. You don't have to worry about whether
Yeah.
you're getting paid or not. You just have a good time.
Yeah.
So, everybody talks about the difference between moving from WCW to WWE. Everybody that kind of lived through that. People don't really know it anymore because WCW is not around. But the people who lived through that experience talk about how kind of, I don't know if overwhelming is the word, but just hugely different things are run in WWE as opposed to the way they were in WCW. Did you find that when you got there?
Yes and no. In WCW, I didn't do much of my negotiations. I try to stay away from the office or the political side of it, and try to be consumed more with my wrestling.
Right.
And so I wasn't really worried about the politics, man. But when I got to WWE and I sat down with JR, I negotiated my contract, and everything started moving forward from that point. It's like everything that they needed, they were asking me for, you know. So, but at the same time, it was much more attention. In WCW, it wasn't Ray. We're getting ready to launch a shirt. What design do you like? Here you are.
Right.
A color of mask or an action figure. WWE, I was part of all of that.
Right.
Ray, these are the designs. Do you have any designs that you want to come up with in the future? Sure. I was doing most of my designs for WWE as well. I would give them ideas, or they would draw it out, and at the end of the day, I would pick out the right design that I would love.
So it's like it's good because you have a lot more control over what's going on, but at the same time, you got a new stack of responsibilities.
Exactly.
That you gotta.
But that's part of the responsibilities that I like,
right?
Because it has to deal with my character,
right?
Except for the stuff that goes on in the ring. That's
right.
completely different. So anything that's outside, which is merchandising and things with that nature, I was good with making choices for that.
And what do you mean with the in-ring stuff?
Well, in ring stuff, when they have a group of writers,
yes.
and this is what the story is going to be, then that's what it's going to be.
Oh, so you actually have more choice over T-shirt design than what you're doing in the ring.
I had more of a preference.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Not too worried about being the guy winning or losing or what the case might be.
I see. So it's like, this is the story, and you're like, okay, it's my job to go out there, just make it
good.
work.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever you throw
I've
me,
always been like that.
I got you. Is it tough? So you go on, you become the heavyweight champion of the world. Did you see that coming? Like, was that a goal of yours?
No, I did not see that coming.
You didn't?
And I think with Eddie's passing, I think the direction shifted my way. Mm-hmm. So if anything, Eddie made me champion.
Now, did that make you feel any certain kind of way, knowing that, like, I would imagine that realistically speaking, that's exactly what Eddie would have wanted, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you felt. Like, this is if Eddie had to go, this is what he would want his legacy to be.
Yeah.
Chavo's back to being Chavo. I'm world champion, and there's actually attention being paid.
Yeah.
How did the locker room and what was that like in that time that shift happened? Was everybody kind of cool with it and like, yeah, he's been doing this for a while, or?
Yeah, I don't think, I want to say that I've never had any beef with anyone in the locker room. I've always learned how to respect. Yeah. And because I like being respected as well. So
right.
I don't think there was any animosity or beef with anyone. I remember Chris was still around, and it was so hard because it was emotional. Mm-hmm. We knew it was happening because of Eddie. Yeah. But he wasn't there, so it was kind of a hard transition. Yeah. Hard acceptance.
Yeah. I could see that. Mm-hmm. I could see that for sure. Yeah. So I guess that puts even more weight on your shoulders, right? Because not only are you now the top guy in the company representing the company, but you want to do it how Eddie would have wanted you to do it.
Yes.
So it had to be a lot of pressure.
Yes, a lot of pressure. And as much as, I mean, Eddie and I, in a way, you know, I come from a second generation family,
Yeah.
you know, of wrestlers. So I know how motivated and focused I have to be to perform at a certain level. And Eddie would bring out the best in me.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it worked vice versa, you know. But at the end of the day, when you don't have that person that would have loved to have seen your success, it makes it so much harder, man. And I know at the time, I think Chris and Chavo were affected very much by it.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't want to be too dark, but
Right.
I'll ask this while we're on the topic. Like, how do you psychologically stay in the game? Like, I would imagine you have to have such a deep support system. Maybe it's with your family. I don't know. When it's what happens with Eddie or Chris, or like the terrible accident with Perro. Like, how do you get back into your headspace where you can just get back into the ring and get back to entertaining the people and enjoying what you're doing?
I think first off is your faith in God.
Yeah.
But second, you just mentioned it. You know, your support system, which is my wife and my kids. Man, I don't think if my wife has been with me for 20 years. We just had our 20th wedding anniversary. So you think about it, and like she's been there from day one.
Seen it all.
From day one.
Yeah.
So, and she's very supportive. She's actually here in New York right now at the hotel waiting for me to come back. So you think about all of that, and I tell myself, wow, that's my shoulder to lean on,
Right.
every single time. And she supports me and backs me up at 100%. And if I'm wrong, she's gonna tell me that I'm wrong.
She is.
She is. So that my faith in God, my support system with my family, and then of course the fans keep pushing me to keep doing this.
Right, the fans, like, we this is what we need, like, because we're dealing with this too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
exactly,
we need you
exactly.
to be that guy for us.
Exactly. And like in the case of the accident with Perro,
Yeah,
the fans were like, Ray, come on, man, we know what happened. You can't
right.
let this affect you.
Yeah,
You know, so that just, it boosts your morale, man.
Right,
It makes you want to go.
when you know that the people who respect what you do are like, Ray, like, this wasn't you. Like, this is
Yeah.
like when the fans are all saying this is the business and this is what happens, but it's not you.
Right.
That's what makes it easier to just kind of push through and everything.
It definitely gives you that support within you
Yeah.
to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of just trying to forget the past and leave it in the past, as hard as it is.
Right.
You know, but you try to move forward.
When you look at the future, like, do you look at guys like Puma, Ricochet, and the stuff he's doing and the stuff that guys are doing now? That's obviously influenced by young Rey Mysterio, but the things that guys are doing with their bodies in terms of flips and top rope moves and stuff like that is like, you know, like you and Psychosis and Juventud and all you guys were blowing my mind in the 90s, you know what I mean? When I was watching, because I'm sitting here, I turn on Nitro, whatever, I've never seen anything like this before. Now, when I think I've seen everything, I'm turning on and there's guys figuring out, like I'm at the point now where I look at guys going, whether it's Neville or Puma or
Yeah.
whoever it is, going, I don't understand how a person has that kind of control over their body. Like, I don't like watching them move. It makes no sense to me.
It would make a little bit more sense if they're diving into a pool.
Right,
Or you're,
that's-
or you're,
I,
yeah.
I saw somebody, I can't, some of the guys that I went to like a Ring of Honor show, and I was there with my wife, and I was like, it's amazing watching him move because it's like he's in water when he's in the air, like just like
Yeah.
everything kind
So
of.
flow, man.
Yeah.
The flow is just perfect. I'm amazed.
Yeah.
I'm really amazed. I remember I forgot who I was telling this to, but it was not too long ago. I said, back when I was coming up and we were trying to change the game, I said it was a moonsault, it was a front flip, maybe it was even a dive with a side flip and you know,
Right.
with control. Now everything is double. Double front flip,
Yeah.
double moonsault,
I mean,
double leg drop. It's crazy.
I turned on the network the other day and I watched when 1-2-3 Kid first showed up, and he
Yeah.
did that, and X-Pac's been here 100 times to tell you how terrible his moonsault was. But he does this terrible moonsault, and I was like, in '93, I was like, what did he just do? You know? And now I'm like, he looks like he's falling or something.
It's crazy. Evolution of wrestling, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Do you talk to the guys about how to stay healthy, like how to keep that style without, because it's bad on the knees.
It'll
it's
consume
bad.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have, man, and I actually tell them, you know what, you're gonna blow me off, but it's all right. I said, because at one point they told me to slow down, and with all respect, I said, yeah, you're right. The veterans would tell me to slow down. But no, I had to go find out for myself. And look at me now. I'm slowing down. Okay, finally, at 41. I said, and you're probably going to tell me, yeah, you're right. And you're going to blow me off too. And eventually you're going to find out. So
right.
I think it's more, they're going to learn the hard way.
You have to.
Eventually.
And I'll bet when you're a young guy and veterans are telling you to slow down, you're like, somebody wants me to move at his pace. That ain't happening.
Yeah.
This is my time now.
Yeah.
This is my time.
Yeah. And I tell them, trust me, man, I don't want to keep doing that much stuff. I said, the less I do, but impactive, I said, I'm good.
Right.
I just want to protect my knees, and I want to make sure that I can still go enough to still entertain the fans.
Now, I wonder, like, it's got to be difficult when you first make the transition over to American wrestling from Lucha to find opponents. Because Lucha is such, like, everybody knows everything. So it's as much on you as it is on your opponent to be able to take all the moves properly.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I feel like that's what was going on when, and I don't know, but I feel like that when Mystico first showed up in WWE and it didn't really work, I felt like it was because, like, that to me was what was going on. This chemistry that existed in the ring wasn't existing in a WWE ring.
It could be a possibility. I always said that his language barrier, not being able to understand English or speak it,
right,
was definitely something that he needed to improve on.
Right.
But for example, when I came into WCW for the first time, Dean Malenko right off the back was like, Dean Malenko, let me see some videos. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna wrestle this guy. Okay.
So you do all your homework that you need to do.
I was just so hooked, and I got to make sure I know which way he moves and how he moves, and left from right, because in the States it's a different side than in Mexico.
Right.
So
is that attitude still prevalent in wrestling? Like, because I know in other businesses, like, you find that that the younger generation is. I don't feel like they're as hungry as I was coming in, and maybe that's just you looking down and wanting this generation not to be as good as you. But do you feel like that mentality that you had, where you're going out of your way, you're doing homework, you're figuring out, like, it's my job to make sure I'm stealing the show with whoever they put me in there with? Like, do you think that mentality still exists, or is it a little more rare?
No, I think it still exists.
It does.
Because I see that in a Prince Puma.
Right.
I see that in a Phoenix. I see that in like in a Pentagon. I see their ambition, their enthusiasm to perform at a very, very high level.
Yeah.
And I was like that growing up.
Yeah.
I wanted to be the best on the show.
Right.
But working with Dean, I learned, I had so many great teachers at that point. Dean Malenko, Jericho, and Jericho had already been to Mexico, but not
right.
Dean. My work with Dean was, the way I started to learn was, the more I got to work with him, the more I would pick his brain. So it was really helping me out.
Right. And is that a time, I would imagine too, the cruiserweight division in that moment were like, look, we have to stick together because we want to be, like, special. Like, nobody's going to give it to us. So let's all of us stick together and make this.
Yeah, and it was a group of guys, the Chavo, Dean, at the same time, remember Jerry Lynn?
Yeah,
Jerry
the
Lynn.
Mysterious Mr. JL?
Yeah, JL. JL, myself, Jericho at the time. But it was a selective group that, we wanted to perform, and we knew we had more talent than what was happening in the main events.
Right.
But there was only a few guys that were fighting for that, and that was the Jerichos.
Yeah.
Eventually he got tired.
Yeah.
He said, I'm out.
Yeah. And for you, it was like, look, I'm just happy to be working. Like, I'm just happy to be stealing the show.
Yeah.
I'll do my matches. People, I'm getting appreciated. I'm good.
Right. Well, yeah, in a way. And then at the same time, Jericho had much more leverage. He had been there much longer than me.
Sure.
So I respected his position.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here. I'm okay right now. I'm making money, and I have a wife and a kid. So I'm going to make sure that this works out right now.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens, happens. Well, Whatever happened did happen, and then I moved on.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I gotta believe too that when when Eddie and Saturn and when the Radicals come over, you're like, okay, and Dean come over to WWE, you're like, there it is, like that. There's a lot going on in WWE right now.
Kind of like that opened up the doors, right? First it was Jericho, and then it was Dean, Perry, like you said. Like, wow, okay. And then that's when the doubt really hit me, and because after all of those guys had already been there, there's still some haters saying that Vince is all about the big guys, man. I don't think you might be able to get in there.
Right.
Man.
And it got in your head a little bit.
Yeah, it was messing with me.
Yeah.
Until eventually that call came from JR.
And it was like, they
were
were wrong.
Man,
they were all these years. They were wrong.
Yeah. And even though after all of that, when that happened, at that time, I didn't even have a second to think, man, all them haters. I was just so happy, like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready to go, man.
That's the right attitude,
yeah,
though. That's a successful attitude.
Yeah,
it's like if you start getting if resentment is what's fueling you, you're gonna crash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for somebody who takes so much pride in their outfits, like you must have hated when WCW took the mask off you and you had to just wear camo.
Yeah, I was trying to find something new to use or wear. The first thing that popped up was because we had that No Limit going on. It was like, all right, let's go with camo.
Right.
You know, and then I went to like some overalls, but it was like some latex material style, and I was putting on those horns.
Right,
so it was just like, man, let's have some fun with this. If we're gonna do it, let's have some fun, and that's when we started the Filthy Animals.
So that's what you did. You were like, well, if they're gonna take the mask off me, I got to figure out something to stop me from going nuts.
Which was a horrible idea, man. I wish that never happened.
Right. Well, did you like that WWE was so committed to ignoring that ever happened?
Yes.
Was that your idea or their idea?
No, that was their idea.
They were like, we're putting the mask back on you, and no photos of you without the mask.
Oh yeah,
like,
They love. I actually love that idea, but it was up to them. They said, when you're coming back with the mask.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you were like,
I'm down,
I'll do whatever.
Oh yeah.
Like before.
And it hadn't been that long, you know. I probably wrestled for about a year and a couple months without the mask, so it was kind of fresh, but at the same time, they were ready to see a new Rey Mysterio.
Right, right. Now, there's a lot of amazing talent in Lucha. So I don't think you're in a position where you're like, oh, if only I could work with this person or that person, because you're getting to work with these people in Lucha. But is there anybody that you're keeping up with that you're aware of, whether it's NXT, WWE, or beyond, somebody who's not there yet, that you're like, I want to see what it'd be like to be in a ring with him?
You know what? I've actually worked with him a little bit on the independent, maybe one or two shows, and I just saw how good he got, you know. Evan Bourne.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, what happened, man?
Yeah.
Like when I saw him again, I was like, dude, you should not be here. You should be over there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but he has your philosophy then. Now, I was just talking to him over the weekend at the Ring of Honor show, and he's this guy that's like, I just think wrestling's amazing, and we can do amazing wrestling, and the shows can be great, and it's just like he's just so motivated to put good shows on.
Yeah.
That's
how
right,
a lot of more of the younger talent or the talent that was around for a while and now is kind of doing their own thing should be like that, you know, just putting on good shows.
Right.
That's what the fans like to see.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. I think one of the strongest things about Lucha is that it's different. It's a different show, and it's like you say that for a while, right? Like, how do you compete with WWE? Well, you don't compete with them. You just do something different.
Exactly.
And it's like it's almost not even an alternative. It's just something else. And for a long time, the people go, well, what's different? Like, what do you? I go, I don't know. That's not. I don't. And then Lucha pops up, and I'm like, that's it. That's something different.
I just mentioned it earlier. I said we don't even want to compete with WWE.
No.
I said we're just different. You know, we have something different to offer, and the fans like it.
And it's interesting because it's like the live shows have this kind of like LA has taken to them the way they take to PWG.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's this sort of like go see like that, like it's this live thing. It's not a TV taping.
Right.
It's like you got to go to the Lucha. You got to go to the Lucha show when it's around. You got to go to the Lucha show, and then on TV, it's like something completely different.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Because you don't get to see the vignettes and the stuff they shoot backstage.
Right.
You know, you only get to see the matches. So when you see the show, the final product, the editing, it's like, wow, I'm watching a mini movie here. This is very cinematic.
Whereas like the live show is like this sort of super over-the-top house show feel in the sense that it's matches it's great matches,
adrenaline,
one after the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Fire, and more fire.
Do you like getting in front of a small crowd like that again? Like, is there something to,
I get chills just thinking about
do?
it, man. Yeah, man. The first time I appeared on Lucha Underground, when Melissa Santos said from San Diego, California, and I was just waiting in the tunnel, the fans were like, "What? We know a guy from San Diego." And when she said Rey Mysterio, wow, that place erupted, man. It was crazy.
Right.
It was crazy. And I don't know, for the 150 or 200 fans that are in there, they made it seem like it was 50,000.
Yeah.
It was that crazy, man. And it was an ovation that, very different from being in a big crowd. This was more intimate. It's more personal.
Right.
You know, you get to make eye contact with the guy at the very top, you know, or the guy at the very front row.
Right.
So it's definitely a different vibe to it.
Yeah, and you can see how much they're like appreciating it.
Yes.
As you're doing it, they're like in it with you, and that's gotta fuel you. And I think that you're probably the one name that from the announcement that Lucha Underground existed, they're like, oh, when's Rey gonna get there? When's Rey gonna get there?
I had that question hit
mean?
me up so many times, man. On the autograph signings, even just hanging out backstage and at Underground when I used to give Conan a ride. Like, hey, Rey, man, picture. When are you going to be a part of this Underground, man? Like, not yet, man.
What's wrestling like in Mexico now? Because I feel like, it's been 20 years, really, since Lucha became part of the American mainstream. And I would credit, as much as, ECW got the ball rolling.
Right.
In terms of actually introducing it to the mainstream, I would say WCW is the one that got eyes on it for the first time. And now that style has kind of been adopted throughout the world. Like, you see it in England. You see it everywhere. And it's not just Mexican people or Hispanic people or whoever. Everybody is kind of learning how to do it. Is Lucha still this thing that's separate from all that the way it was before, do you think?
AAA has a certain way of combining a little bit of everything, which is good because it stays fresh. It stays it keeps evolving. And you have the other major company, which is Arena Mexico, CMLL, which likes to stick to their old school ways, To be honest with you, I don't know how the crowds get in Arena Mexico, but I know AAA, this last year that I was doing a couple shows for them, they were selling out every single place that we were going to. So it's good for them to adapt styles from different places.
And I feel like that's happening more and more. I feel like, New Japan is kind of having this resurgence, and that's because even though it's always going to be the most heavy influence is Japanese.
Right.
They brought all this American style into it and almost storytelling and stuff like that. And New Japan has become this thing that the world is looking at a little more closely. Right. And I think that probably is happening with AAA too.
Exactly.
That like it's still Lucha is the heaviest influence, but it's bringing in a little of this American style, and it becomes, because wrestling is more now, I guess, because nothing's local anymore, right? Like in America, it stopped being territorial, and it was throughout the country. Right. Now, because of the internet and social media, wrestling styles can't really exist in just one part of the world. No. It's got to be something that just gets opened up.
You're absolutely right. But it's actually a good thing for the Mexican audience to open up their minds and just get away from just lucha constantly all the time.
Yeah.
It's good now that they're giving them a little bit of storytelling. And I think this has been happening for the last 5 to 6 years.
Right.
The angles are starting to get bigger, and not just the main event, but everybody has a piece of the show, which is actually good.
Right. Is there anything, do you have any goals left? Is there anything left that you haven't, because you've done so much. And I was thinking, you're the only guy I feel like that was able to have that run in WCW. And it was like you were a WCW lifer or whatever, you know what I mean? In the sense that you had a long enough run. And then you go to WWE, and you were kind of a WWE lifer. You went from organization to organization, but without flaking out on anybody. You didn't go back and forth.
Right.
You had these really long, consistent runs that you could even, anybody would be happy to have any one of those separately.
Right.
You know, whether it's the Mexico career, the WCW career, the WWE career. And now with Lucha, is there anything left that like you're like, one day I want to do that, or is this just now it's just time to have fun?
I think it's just time to have fun and enjoy all my my years of being on the grind and success and being able to help Lucha Underground create a good status.
Yeah.
Not even a competition status, but just a great status, and have a good atmosphere that can stick around for a very long time. You know, I don't want this to be just something temporary. I want this to be around for other guys to eventually be a part of. This is literally this company literally picked up a lot of talent that was just wandering around out there. Really good talent.
Yeah.
Like the Pumas and like the Cages and like the Willies. You know, that
and Sammy Callahan's there now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is giving the opportunity to a lot of wrestlers to eventually make their name for themselves, you know, on television.
Right.
So
and it's getting, I mean, it's only getting more popular, and it's this really nice kind of organic thing. Everybody tries to get the organic buzz going,
right?
But you can't just make it, right? Like
No.
Everybody's like, it's like corporate guys. They're like, let's make a viral video, and you can't just make something go viral.
No.
But it's this kind of nice, almost like tumbleweed effect that it keeps building and building and building.
It gets bigger and bigger every time
as it goes, and it's amazing. So is that? Do you see yourself staying there for a long time, even in a sort of mentor capacity?
I think so. I definitely see myself staying here as long as they would want me to.
Right.
You know. So with that being said, if there's anything I can do to make this product even bigger and bigger every time, I'm hoping that I can help, you know, promote this in any form or way. WWE is already it's a monster.
Of course.
You know, it's a monster. How cool would it be for me to be part of Underground, which I am, and to make this somewhat of a monster as well on its own end.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and it's something. And I mean, look, you're in town for the upfronts. I mean, that's a big deal.
Big.
Yeah, television upfronts, like this is what all the big stars come in town for, and you're here representing Lucha on equal footing as all the other shows. That's a big deal.
We got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So this is great. I mean, like you said, this is only the beginning of something that is causing an effect, which eventually will turn out to something really big. I mean, all the materials are there.
Is there anybody that you want to see in Lucha that's not there yet?
Is there anybody? Seidel definitely is a guy that like I said, I would love to see him there. I think he has a lot of potential. He has that style too. Yeah. And I would love to see him mix up with the Mexican luchadores.
Yes.
Mix up that lucha libre style.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing he hasn't really done.
Right.
He has his own personal style, which is fresh. But
which, by the way, he's the perfect example of one of the guys who Lucha came in and he grew up watching Lucha, and Lucha is obviously infused into his whole style of everything.
Yeah, so he definitely needs to be a part of this soon.
Well,
that's an open invitation, man.
Everybody check out Lucha. It's on El Rey. You can also get it on iTunes now.
Yeah.
So if you don't have cable, you can't come up to Rey Mysterio and be like, oh, I wish I could watch it. I don't have cable. Like,
nah, man.
Get the season pass on iTunes then. Like
1 and 2 is on there already. Or
right.
1. Yeah, 1 and 2?
I think.
Yeah, 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
2, even though 2 is still on the air.
They're updating the episodes as they go, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So that's big. Everybody check it out. And Rey Mysterio, man, I'm glad I finally got the chance to sit down with you.
Man, thank you very much, man. That was a wonderful conversation.
For sure, man.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Sam Roberts. I hope you enjoyed that wrestling interview from Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast. You can go to notsam.com to subscribe to that podcast. But I upload videos like that on this YouTube channel all the time. So if you don't already subscribe now. It's on the side of the page. I made it real easy. Click the button. Subscribe to the page. Subscribe to the page.